Showing restraint. In some instances, the actions of our kind necessitate the obtaining of an injunction or a restraining order to address certain behaviours. Obtaining one is not always as straightforward as it might appear, though much depends on the type of narcissist that you are dealing with. You can often count on facing a counter-application which is designed to muddy the waters, intimidate you, and/or be used as a bargaining chip in order to cause you to drop your own action. The fabrication of evidence in support of our own application can be expected. However, let us assume that you have succeeded in obtaining the injunction or restraining order, and there has been no cross-application from us. Will we obey the restraining order that you have secured? Do not think that it is a simple matter of us evaluating whether we should obey it or not. You must keep in mind that we are entitled to do as we please, when we want, where we want, and with whomever we choose. This includes you, probably more than anybody else. We operate from a position of assumed superiority, and we do not recognize or respect any boundaries. The presence of a restraining order is regarded as a terrible and unjustified imposition on our capacity to do what must be done. In order to understand whether we will comply with it, you must understand how it fits into the narcissistic dynamic. This differs dependent on the type of narcissist your order is against. The lesser narcissist. Although he has a lower control threshold, meaning his fury is more prone to erupt, he also has less energy and motivation to embark on a hoover. In such circumstances, whoever it is who has to serve the restraining order is likely to receive the initial backlash as the lesser's fury erupts on receipt of this criticism. The provision of such a shackle on his ability to do as he pleases amounts to a considerable criticism. Most process servers will serve the order without providing fuel. The same goes for the judge, if the narcissist has attended court to challenge the application. You can expect an immediate eruption in such circumstances, and the lesser will lash out at those in the vicinity. Once this fury has abated, will he obey the order? The existence of the order acts to raise the bar rather high in respect of the Hoover execution criteria. This makes the prospect of successfully extracting fuel from a victim harder, and therefore, even if there is a Hoover trigger, the existence of the order means that the criteria is far less likely to be met. You are more likely then to be left alone, and the order will be obeyed. Note how it is not the order per se that causes compliance, but its effects on the Hoover execution criteria. That is why it is necessary to understand how a restraining order fits into the narcissistic dynamic. The circumstances where the lesser is likely to break a restraining order are as follows. 1. If you criticize him and ignite his fury, for instance, if you contact the lesser narcissist by telephone, the ignition of fury will mean he will have no regard for the order and come after you in order to seek fuel to deal with the wound you have caused. It may be the case that the lesser is forbidden from coming near you, but you can still contact him if required, if indeed you actually wanted to. Or 2, you do something which lowers the bar on the Hoover execution criteria. Thus, if the lesser happens to see you somewhere, perhaps by accident, the presentation of potential fuel in this manner means that the criteria for a Hoover will be more readily met. A Hoover then takes place and the order will be broken. The lesser is not concerned with the downside of breaking the order. The mid-range narcissist is of all the schools of narcissists the one who is most likely to obey the order. This is because his passive-aggressive nature does not lend itself to contravening the order, and this also combines with the raising of the Hoover execution criteria bar, as described above. You should also note that since he has an increased cognitive function, he is well aware of the downside of contravening the order and the consequent effect on his liberty, which will thus in turn hamper his fuel-gathering capabilities. If the mid-range is going to breach the order, he will do so by utilizing a proxy to approach you on his behalf. It will not be done in any aggressive way, but rather as a pity play, beseeching you to stop this unnecessary action And can we not just talk to one another like reasonable people? This is a ploy through a third party to cause you to lower your guard, so a hoover can be effected and without any consequence. If you agree, the hoover will not be malign, he will seek positive fuel in order to build a bridge to keep coming back for more. As for the greater narcissist, the hoover execution criteria bar is raised, but the greater has higher levels of energy and cunning to address this adjustment. He also has a greater sense of entitlement. The greater is well aware how the downside of contravening such an order will have against him. He will know it will impact on his abilities for gathering fuel and also damage the facade. He is, however, driven and regards the appearance of such an order as a challenge for him to flex his cunning and manipulative muscles. The greater will not be able to resist the opportunity for game playing, but will do so in a manner which minimizes risk to him. He will have the arrogance to assume he will not be caught, but lack the stupidity to blindly contravene it. Instead, he will utilize all manner of tactics to breach the order, but through others with no link to him. He will rely on plausible deniability and the threat of breaching it to cause consternation on the part of the victim. The greater will not want to suffer the downside. He is wary of this. He does not want his standing to be affected by it, and the effect it will have on his carefully constructed facade. But the temptation of the fuel and the desire to win by outsmarting the order will usually prove too great. If there is a hoover trigger and the criteria is met, the greater will hoover, but will do so in a clever manner. There will be no crass and blunt weapon involved. He will aim to breach it, but through clever manipulation, the use of others, and the complete avoidance of repercussions for him.